Welcome to the season finale of SportsLink Stories presented by Victory Honda of Muncie.
This episode, we're inside Worthen Arena. I'm Hadassah Harris alongside Madison Surface and Hudson French.
Thank you for joining us. Let's get started.
SportsLink Stories showcases the best stories of Ball State athletes. Victory Honda of Muncie proudly supports those athletes and the storytellers of Ball State SportsLink through the award-winning program SportsLink Stories.
Presented by Victory Honda of Muncie.
Victory Honda of Muncie, powering Ball State athletics and Ball State SportsLink.
Thousands of fans and spectators fill these very stands, but unfortunately for athletes due to injury, they're forced to do the same. This was the case for Bethany Moser.
One person who's really stepped up this season is Bethany. I think she's just taken her leadership role really well. She's just taken everything on her plate and really stepped up, yeah.
She's always got a lot to say. She's really funny though. Everything that comes out of her mouth is funny. So she can always bring my mood up a little bit.
Bethany is like the most hyped person, like outside, like she's always gonna be there, like even when she couldn't play, like she was that person who was gonna make sure like you're hyped, you're ready.
As a captain for our group, you know, I think it's a great person to be in that position, to be able to look at someone and say, hey, like, I think you can give us more today. Don't take it for granted, you know, and she understands more than a lot of the pains of having to watch and not actually be able to be out there and play.
Immediately when I got here my freshman year, I was out for like a month. In the first practice, we started doing some diving, and the next day when I woke up, I couldn't feel like my shoulder. I tore my labrum. I had a slap tear, which is here, and then an anterior tear, which is at the top of my shoulder. 6 to 8 months was the time frame. We had a spring season that year, so I wasn't gonna be able to play in that at all, in that time frame. So I was kind of a cheerleader for my freshman year. I came into my sophomore year with a little bit of like a hip injury, so I wasn't really like cleared yet for shoulder and hip purposes. And then when I finally got cleared, I think I had found out 2 or 3 days after I got cleared that I was gonna be playing in the Toledo game. My whole family came to the game and everything. That was really exciting for me, at least at that point, before I knew what was gonna happen.
Scooped up by Bethany Moser, her first start of the season.
Everything was going well. It was 10 minutes into the game, I had made my first save off of a free kick, and I was like, okay, here we go, this is awesome. And then 15 minutes into the game, there was a cross a little bit outside of the 6-yard box. I just went up to go punch a ball out.
Schultz into the box. Keeper's out, scrambled away by Ball State.
It just was 6 or 7 pops, just and it felt like something had lit my leg up. It felt like a bonfire, something had just exploded in my leg. It was nothing I had ever felt before. And I just remember laying on the ground and screaming. Josh and the trainer helped me up, and they carried me off and kind of put me behind the bench.
To see someone work as hard as she had to come back from her previous injury, and then within the first 15 minutes of a game, pick up another pretty major injury, we all felt it.
I tore my ACL through. I partially tore my LCL. I tore my meniscus, my medial and lateral meniscus. I tore my MCL. So it almost felt normal that I was getting news that I was about to be out for so long because I had just gone through it. My initial thought was why? I could lift my leg slightly for an inch after a week. You're on crutches for a while, and then you're able to walk, but you're still in a straight leg brace, so you can't move. You're just kind of like limping everywhere. It's pretty slow on what you're allowed to do. It's when you are cleared to start doing things around the 3 months, it's all straight lined. Jogging, not really sprinting. I know I did the hydro works a lot, which is where you kind of run in the pool on the treadmill. It's a pretty slow process. It ended up being 9 months. That was hard, but if I was gonna do it, I knew it was gonna have to like come from me. Like no one was gonna be able to force me to do it. So the more I was cleared to do things and the more I was able to help other people kind of gave me my hope throughout the season, and all that other people started to get hurt. And so I had these tools from the past 2 years of being hurt that I could give to them.
She offers a different perspective. Like she knows what it's like to have the game taken away, right? She knows what it's like to want desperately to be on the field and just not be able to. And so I think most days she's gonna bring a certain level of perspective to training and enjoyment to what we're doing, because her more than a lot of people understands how quickly it can be taken away. And so don't take it for granted, enjoy it, work hard, do your best.
It just felt like everything was coming back into play, and I was a little apprehensive because I had 2 reoccurring injuries. Specifically, like the Toledo game where I got hurt the first time, that was when I was the most nervous because we were warming up on the same side that I tore my ACL. I walked the field before the game by myself, and I like went to the spot and I like jumped on the spot like 5 or 6 times just to like prove a point to myself. But it was nerve-wracking, to say the least.
Angle on the left, but a shot right into the waiting arms of Bethany Moser.
There was a play that happened where I was put in the same position where it was a cross in the same spot, and I remember I landed with my feet on the ground without anything happening, and I was like, okay, like you should be fine now, like you got that out of the way. I was on edge for the whole half, and then got that first half under my belt, and we were on that side in the first half and got that over with, and I went off to like the sidelines and everyone was like, hey, you're good now. Like that was the hardest thing you were gonna have to get through this season. And I remember after that I was like, you're right, like that is probably the biggest mental block I'm gonna have to get through. Then it kind of felt like I could take a deep breath, and that was really nice because it felt like I hadn't taken a deep breath in like 3 years.
I think to go through what she has and still come out now and has been playing pretty phenomenal for us, credit to her.
I don't really want to feel self-pity because it's not going to get me anywhere. I'd rather just feel gratefulness for being able to be where I'm at now. I'm able to run now, and that's not something that I ever thought I was going to have to say. I'm able to dive, and that's not something I ever thought was going to be taken away from me, but it's stuff that I appreciate a lot more now.
Get ready for the comeback, comeback, comeback.
I don't think that there's anything that I couldn't get through at this point and come out on the other side, and I think just persevering is something that I'm equipped to do in everything, and that underdog mentality is something that's going to stick with me forever.
Get ready for me.
I don't think that there is any other path that makes sense for me, just because I think the amount of things that I gained through that process is super priceless to me. I don't even know if I would take them back to be able to like play, because I think that there are so many things that I gained from it that I never would have gained in any other aspect of my life. It's such a weird and specific situation. I don't think that there was any other plan for me than the plan that I'm in right now.
Oh, get ready for me.
One of the best parts of the game day atmosphere is the student section, aka the Nest. One of the players that they've fallen in love with, A.L. Rowitz.
Our history shapes us into who we are. It teaches us to fight, to love, and to never give up on our dream. My history is one of resilience and a will to succeed, even in the darkest of times. My history is one that should have never been written, but somehow, against all circumstances, I was granted this opportunity, which I'm very grateful for. Tel Aviv is one of the three big cities in Israel. I would say the more urban. Tel Aviv is a beach city. You can go eat, a lot of boulevards. When you grow up more, there's a lot of bars, a lot of clubs. Growing up, I didn't really play too much sport, but I played a little bit of soccer. I always loved football, like American football, from my dad.
For his bar mitzvah, what Eyal asked for was to go to New York and go to a Giants game. That was his wish.
I remember the first game I watched was like the Steelers against someone, and Troy Polamalu gave a concussion to someone, and I was like, this is so cool. So I always wanted to be an NFL player until I started playing volleyball. In middle school, we had like 2 hours a week where we can choose like a different class. And I heard that in the warm-up for a volleyball class, you play soccer, and it was really fun. So I went for that. I actually started in beach volleyball. My friend from school brought me there, and then the same friend actually brought me to indoor volleyball. In 10th grade, I went to Wingate Institute Academy. It's basically a boarding school. We call it an academy for sports. So when we got there, there was an Israeli player playing in UC Irvine. And you were like, wow, this is so cool. This is basically the American dream. So since then, we just thought about that almost every day. Like, hey, I want to get there, I want to get a degree, play volleyball in the US. Military service is mandatory in Israel for everyone, unless you get like medical exemption or religious exemption. I didn't. But they do recognize the fact that you're an athlete and you play sports, whatever sport it might be. So like you have student athlete, you have soldier athlete, which means you go through basic training. It's about a month and a half. And then I served for 2 years, 8 months as a teacher at a school. It was kind of like last chance school. So all the kids in the city, they got thrown out of their school. They have learning disabilities. So we just helped them get through high school with really individual care and get their diploma and get them off the streets. That was just making the most out of my service, because obviously I couldn't go to combat because I was still a volleyball player.
What's your biggest takeaway from teaching?
Don't judge a book by its cover. Always be humble, because you don't know what's going on.
Education is the most
You do such a great
valuable
job in education, which is the basis of every society. I think there's nothing more important and worthy than that.
I always loved giving back. In hindsight, giving back to all these kids was really fulfilling. It was just like a really, really good position in the Army for me to be both an athlete and a soldier. It was like the best of both worlds. I started in the national team around the age of 16 or 17. And then I was also really happy to be called up to the senior national team. Right out of high school, I graduated June 19. And then I got drafted July 19, so about 3 weeks after school. There's a guy called Mark. He's Brazilian. He played in my club for the senior team when I was around 15, 16 years old.
And I watched him play, so I kind of knew his level, his potential, and then we build up, you know, a very one-to-one individualized 360-degree profile for, you know, the US and mapping the market according to his characteristics.
He compiled my highlight tape, and since he knows all the coaches and all the coaches know him, they know he's reliable. I started getting offers around July or June of 2021. And then I had a few offers, but none of them just compared to Ball State. From the first Zoom call, I loved Coach.
His leadership and his work ethic is unbelievable, and a lot of it is because of that military training prior to arriving, the mentorship opportunities he had.
When I committed, it was obviously, I was really happy. I felt really lucky. But I would say a lot of things had to go in a certain way and direction for me to be sitting here having this interview, you know? Like all the small little things had to happen. My mom's side has suffered some horrific things.
My father was in the Lodz ghetto in Poland.
So the Lodz ghetto was it was a sort of a special ghetto in the Nazi occupation of Poland in a couple of ways. The ghetto is designed for you to die in the ghetto. Nobody was expected to live the ghetto. There were lots of little possible ways to get out, but what's important to stress is that it's all by chance.
He was put through the death blocks, so towards the end of the war, the Nazis just decided to let the Jews walk bare naked in the snow until they died.
When you think about what it's like to be on the death march, you've got to realize that if you're on the death march, you've already survived everything up to that point. The Russians were approaching from the east, we were approaching from the west. They knew things were over, so their last-ditch effort was to clean out all of the death centers and all the concentration camps and try to march all of the prisoners who were still there back into Germany itself.
My father survived it. He was one of the few who did. My mother was very, very lucky. She was in the ghetto, but as a young lady, she was a very beautiful woman.
Worthen Arena is a place where teams are able to grow stronger together. Growing stronger is something baseball player Adam Tellier's family knows a lot about.
Adam and his love for baseball started very young. Before he even knew that he was going to love the sport, I think he was a little bit told that he was being born into a family that loved baseball.
The day I was born, my mom's brothers brought a baseball bat and glove to the hospital, so I like to think it's like ever since I came out of the womb, I've always loved the game of baseball.
He is a natural athlete. I had to work at my athleticism, and I would always believe that Adam was never working hard enough. And what I finally realized when I stopped coaching him is he was so much more of an athlete than I was that I didn't have to tell him that stuff. He just made things look easy.
Whenever my dad was home, it was me and him. So I still have so many good memories of even meeting my younger brother and my dad out in the front yard, just learning the game. It was more than just the game of baseball. It was just us being able to have time together and spend time doing something that we loved.
Adam and I are very close. I'm sure that that's because that he is our first child, but he has always held a role in our family that was very special to me. And I think that our closeness tightened even more when his dad deployed to Afghanistan.
There was an opportunity where one of the commanders was not able to go on the deployment, and my background, my experience, it allowed me to step in that role and essentially volunteer or be voluntold to fill in that vacancy. The easy part is the soldier who's deploying. The difficult part is the family that has to stay home and continue to do what they've always done without that one person that's part of the family unit, being me.
Being the oldest in the family, I would probably understood it the most. I was only 11 years old, really. And my sister was 9 and my younger brother was 5, 6. So they didn't really understand it fully, but it was obviously in some of their big developmental years. And I kind of ended up growing up pretty quick through that process.
The day, the week before deployment, one, I haven't thought about it too much in the last 10 or 11 years. It was real raw conversations. Some of the last words that you say to your family is, "I love you." When I woke up that next day, I was the commander and we were getting ready to take 450 troopers to a combat zone.
The moment that he left felt pretty cold. Because I was returning home with 3 small children and a big task ahead of me.
Throughout the next 10 years, I was gone, 1 week, 2 weeks at a time, but never months at a time.
He would be doing everything that he could to make it to the field. He'd be showing up in his BDUs, which is his military uniform. He'd be coming off of a red eye from Latvia, and he would be right at the field for my Saturday morning games. So it meant a lot to me that he would do what he could to make it to all my games.
My friend who coached a travel team in Grand Rapids, Michigan, had told me, "I have 4 players I'd like you to look at." The 4th name on that list was Adam Tellier. As soon as I get to the field, I see this long, wiry boy. I watch his movements, and I said to my 2 assistants who were there, I said, "You know who the best prospect on this field is right now? Is that boy right there." I ran over to my friend, and I said, "Hey, did you tell me about this boy?" And he goes, "Yeah, here's the 4th name. Here's the name I had on the list there." And I said, "I'll be doggone," because I said, "That guy right there, that's the guy I want. I want that guy."
So I retired from the military March 31st, 2020. That was about 45 days after people started to use this new word called COVID. I wouldn't trade it for anything because I had an opportunity to be home. Adam came home from Ball State because the university's all closed. We got to become real close.
My mom and him travel to almost every game, and just to look up in the stands after something good or bad happens is kind of just something that keeps me grounded in who I am, and to just remind me that we were in the front yard just playing baseball and having fun not too long ago.
Nice job, Cardinals!
To have him to be there in some of like the highest baseball or highest level baseball that I've played in my life, to be able to have him there to see it and see me have some success means a lot.
It's hard to not see leadership in Adam.
He's not the cheerleader, but he's the loudest on the bench because he's wanting everyone around him to be successful.
Adam's a happy person, and when you see him on the ball field, a lot of times you'll see him photographed smiling.
He's the glue guy. He's the guy that everybody just loves being around, and he's the first one to cheer all his teammates on, and that's why he's a good leader.
He's wanting his team to be successful. He's wanting the community that he's playing for to be successful. It's not about Adam, and it never really has been.
And that's the essence of leadership, is when you can put your selfish thoughts behind you and think more for the betterment of the group, now you can lead. And that's what Adam Tallier represents for us.
He's an individual who has the ability to have a goal, go after it, continue to meet it, not only in sports, but he can do that in pretty much anything in life. That's what I'm most proud of.
That'll do it for the season finale of SportsLink Stories presented by Victory Honda of Muncie. We've been all over Ball State's campus bringing you the best stories in Ball State sports, and it's been an honor to host this show.
So thank you to you, the fans. Thank you to Tristan, Fluhr, and Tyler Klimes, and the entire SportsLink crew for bringing our vision to life.
Be sure to follow us on socials at Ball State SportsLink, and thank you again.